Well, here we are at another season of Doctor Who, and this time, things get weird. We kick things off with a continuation of Amy and Rory's honeymoon. Currently, they're aboard a space liner. Unfortunately, it's having some trouble navigating the upper atmosphere of a planet. And it's because of this fella who's basically holding the whole planet hostage. He's a loan shark whose family has control of a device that can control the clouds, which aren't actually clouds. They're a suspension of ice crystals with an electrical charge. And within the ice crystal clouds are fish that utilize the electricity to swim and survive. But the problem is, the guy in charge, who I'll call Scrooge, is a right psychopath. He even wields more power than the president of the planet. And he holds members of various families hostage in cryosuspension as collateral for the loans they've taken out. He's the richest guy on the planet, and everyone else is darn near destitute. And we demonstrate it when this one family asks that he release the sister of the wife of this particular family so she can celebrate Christmas with them. And he's like, nope, go F yourselves. So, while the rest of the family is dejected, this one kid, he throws a rock at the guy. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to kill him, so he decides to retaliate with a backhand, only he hesitates. And the doctor, who has been witnessing all this after coming down the chimney of this guy's house to plead for the over 4,000 lives aboard that space liner, like I said, he witnesses the guy hesitate with his backhand. So he decides to treat this guy like Mr. Scrooge. So for the sake of the story, I'm going to call the guy Scrooge. First, he sets up a projection of Scrooge as a little kid, about 12 years old. He's doing a video diary, and he plans to stay up and look at the fish when they come out of the uncontrolled clouds. But then his dad, who's a right prat, comes in, yells at him, backhands him, for real, and tells him to keep the windows closed, otherwise the fish will get in. And they're a bit bitey. Then the doctor leaves old Scrooge alone and ends up inside young Scrooge's video. It seems he's doing a bit of history rewriting, but not enough so that time bats show up somehow. He takes it upon himself to become young Scrooge's babysitter and promises him a chance to look at the fish and find out how the clouds work. And he does both. He uses his sonic screwdriver to lure in a fish, just a little, like the kind you'd see in a goldfish tank, an expensive one. But before he can show the kid, a 10 to 15 foot shark swims in through the window and eats the fish and the screwdriver and tries to eat the doctor and the kid. Luckily, while the big fish has cornered the duo in a closet, it's wedged itself so that its mouth is stuck open, allowing the doctor to dangerously retrieve at least part of his screwdriver. Unfortunately, the shark has spent too much time out of the upper atmosphere and is slowly dying. So, young Scrooge takes the doctor down to where they keep the cryopods, which are being kept cold through a lake of this ice fog that Scrooge's house is built on. Unfortunately, when they go to retrieve a cryopod and wake someone up in the process, the sonic screwdriver, attempting to repair itself, hones in on the piece that's still stuck in the shark, which manages to call it down into the room. So they have a bit of cat and mouse with the shark, until the girl they woke up, named Abigail, she starts singing with the kind of perfect pitch and expert talent that should be allowing her to be a famous singer out in the galaxy, but for some reason she's chosen to be the collateral of her family, even though she could make the kind of money that they need to erase their debt like that. She's made a big sacrifice, and we find out that she can sing in perfect harmony with the ice crystals in the air, which also calms the shark. Now the kid simplifies it by saying the fish like the music, and while the doctor tries to explain what's really going on, the little fish keep biting in his ear, and it's hilarious. Eventually they get the shark back into the upper atmosphere safely using the cryopod to keep it alive, and they decide to become their own Team TARDIS for a while. And every Christmas, like clockwork, the Doctor and young Scrooge take Abigail on various adventures. All the while, a clock counting down from about 8 is seen slowly counting down as they celebrate various Christmases, with little Scrooge going the long way around and the Doctor leaping forward year by year, and of course Abigail leaping forward through the cryopod. Eventually, Abigail notices that little Scrooge has become a teenager, and he's rather handsome. And so, after the Doctor accidentally marries, or tries to marry, Marilyn Monroe, Scrooge and Abigail form a relationship, like a real proper relationship, like Amy and Rory. But then she tells him something, and it causes him to lose his Christmas spirit. So when Abby goes back into the cryopod, Scrooge cuts ties with the Doctor. Then, not long after, his dad shows him the device that eventually becomes the one that old Scrooge uses to keep the planet basically a hostage. Old Scrooge's abusive dad, who's now grown to respect him somewhat, he flat out calls people cattle, and basically the guy's acting like a supervillain, like a low-key supervillain. And while at first this horrifies young Scrooge, and he even takes the broken sonic screwdriver that the Doctor gave him earlier to call him just in case he changes his mind about celebrating Christmas. When Scrooge picks up the screwdriver, the doctor's already there, like he knew it was going to happen. But then Scrooge emotionally cuts ties with the doctor for good. And he becomes the guy he is today. Someone who would make a good Dalek, sadly. So then, after showing Scrooge his past, Amy shows up in hologram form to show him the present. The Doctor uses the hologram systems of the spaceship to show Scrooge the people in the ship singing to try and use their harmonic resonance to stabilize the clouds, but they're not powerful enough. She even allows, or the Doctor and Amy even allow Scrooge to communicate with the people on the bridge of the ship. But Scrooge has hardened his heart. And eventually we find out why. Despite meeting Abby's family and really warming up to them, the news that Abby gave him, that she was sick when she went into the cryotube, and the countdown is how many days she has. Well, that's what destroyed him. That's why he keeps her. If he lets her out, she'll only live one more day. And that's what hardened him. So then the Doctor really pulls out the stops, becoming the ghost of Christmas future. But he doesn't show old Scrooge his future, because he knows what that future is. Death from old age. No. He shows young 12-year-old Scrooge, the man he's going to become. In fact, when he mistakes his older self for his dad, well, that causes him to nearly backhand the boy. But this is when old Scrooge finally emotionally breaks, and the two hug. And despite the obvious paradox, nothing happens, except old Scrooge finally has seen the light. Unfortunately, the way the machine is programmed, this new, more decent Scrooge can't interface with it anymore. It's locked him out. Luckily, combining it with the sonic screwdriver and the voice of Abigail, who gets woken up for the last time to finally reconcile with Scrooge. Her voice, projected through the machine via the screwdriver, ends up clearing a path for the spaceship to land. Well, not land so much as crash, but enough so that everybody lives. And so, with the day saved, the Doctor even uses the machine to ensure that there's a snowfall for Christmas. And Amy and Rory celebrate, and even Scrooge and his lady love go on one last sleigh ride, using the flying shark as the reindeer. which it was okay with, because Scrooge, Abby, and the shark have established a bit of a rapport. After this bittersweet adventure, the Doctor sends cards to Amy, Rory, and River, which sends them to the desert in America. And they go on a picnic, and we find out the Doctor has hit over 1,100 years old. And the reason he's chosen this place for the picnic is he has a meeting with someone that he could not be late for. And the meeting is with an astronaut that climbs out of a nearby lake. The Doctor seems to know who that person is. They have a bit of a chat. Then the astronaut kills him. Like, stone dead kills him. And walks off, literally shrugging off the bullets that River's firing at him. Unfortunately, that's it. The Doctor is dead. And, with help from someone who knows the Doctor, an old man who just popped up, they give the Doctor a Viking cremation, because even his body is a miracle, and so many people would destroy Earth to get at it. But then, while they're trying to come to terms with everything at a nearby cafe, they find another note. And it seems that note was given to the only person the Doctor trusts more than Amy, Rory, or River. His 900-plus-year-old self, who pops up like nothing's happened. And so, the Doctor's younger self, oblivious to what's to come, is given a mission. Go to 1969 and find out why some little girl is contacting President Nixon. And we also meet the old man again, as a young man, a guy named Canton, who used to work for the FBI, but he got kicked out because of someone he wanted to marry. And eventually the Doctor convinces Nixon to let him solve the mystery. And clues are followed to various places, and they end up at an orphanage. And eventually they find a spaceship that looked identical to the one that parked on top of Craig's house. Like, literally identical. So we finally find out who the spaceship belonged to. These big-headed aliens that have barely discernible eyes and no visible mouths, and can shoot lightning that erases a person, like completely disintegrates them, as poor Amy witnessed when some hapless victim named Joy saw the aliens, then forgot about them when she turned away, and fed up, I guess, with the poor woman's antics, the alien disintegrated her. Eventually, they come across the astronaut again, who, as it turns out, was the little girl the whole time. The name she gave the president was actually street names, and it's a place in Florida. Unfortunately, when Kenton gets injured, Amy takes his gun and tries to kill the astronaut in order to save the doctor, which was a mistake. Cut to a few months later, and Kenton is running down and killing Amy, Rory, and River for no discernible reason. And for some reason, they keep drawing tally marks on their arms, legs, and faces. Eventually, Amy and Rory's body bags are delivered to Area 51, where the doctor is trussed up like a madman with a beard. And somehow, the Americans have gotten their hands on alien technology, and they're building a prison for the doctor. Or should I say, building a prison around the doctor. Similar to the Pandorica. But eventually, it's revealed that it's a flim-flam. Amy and Rory are okay, and Kenton is back with the FBI, helping the doctor, who's not really trussed up. And it turns out the prison is actually a safe room. And so, Team TARDIS, consisting of Kenton, the Doctor, Amy, and Rory, try to track down where the little girl came from, because the Doctor was able to triangulate where her call was coming from. It's, like I said, a place in Florida, an orphanage that shut down a couple years previous. And it's got one caretaker whose mind is pretty much gone. His only thought, keeping the little girl safe. On orders from whom? They don't know. Eventually it's revealed that the aliens are called the Silence. Yeah, we've heard this name before. And these creatures have been influencing humanity on a level and for a time period that would make the meddling monk stand up and do a slow clap. Turns out they're the reason humanity decided to go to the moon, because they needed a spacesuit. The Silence, that is. Furthermore, one Silence, after it gets wounded, taunts the Doctor and his friends by saying humanity should kill the Silence on sight. I guess because of what they've been doing in the shadows. Yeah. As if they weren't creepy enough, they're probably the reason why old houses creak and you always seem to hear voices in another room or under your bed when you're alone. Yeah, sleep well, folks. Eventually they find the empty spacesuit, and the child somehow broke out of it. But the suit ends up quickly repairing itself. Meanwhile, after a little tinkering on the Doctor's part, Team TARDIS springs their trap on the Silence. It seems Kenton recorded one of the silents, saying that they should all be slaughtered. And the doctor has him transmit the message via souped-up walkie-talkie right when Neil Armstrong does his big speech for the moon landing. So the silents inadvertently tell everyone on Earth to declare war on them, which makes the Earth unsuitable for occupation. And while they didn't figure out who the little girl was, Amy found the kid's room, and it seemed to have a photograph of her holding a baby. Is this an alternate history or the near future? Who knows, because Amy lost her memory of that event. And she lost her memory of seeing a mysterious woman peek through a window that wasn't actually there, mentioning that Amy was sleeping and dreaming. And eventually they get Canton home. And we finally find out who Canton wanted to marry. A black dude, which Nixon is sort of okay with. Turns out he's a little more liberal than he likes to let on. And so the day is sort of saved, although Amy and Rory, who have reaffirmed their love for each other, still have to live with the knowledge of what the doctor's going to have to go through soon. Meanwhile, a couple months later in New York, the kid is still alive, but she senses that she's dying. Apparently being out of that suit, which was the ultimate life support, wasn't good for her. But she has a solution to her predicament. She regenerates Gallifreyan style. And that is a story for another time. Until then, this is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, the silence will fall. And whenever you see one of these black-eyed, big-headed aliens, you gotta take them out.